Hello there, my beautiful book lovers. My name is Kimia, and welcome to my book nook. So, for today, we have a very fun, cozy, warm sort of a video ahead of us. As you can see, I've got my sweater on, I've got my tea, my sort of wintry, Christmassy cup, which is one of my favorite. And you might ask yourself that it's November, so maybe it's too early for Christmas. And the answer to that is always no. After Halloween, it's basically Christmas, at least for me, that's it. So for today, we are going to look at some of the coziest books that have ever existed. But the thing is that for this list, other than the first book that it's honestly sort of like very popular and I'm pretty sure a lot of people have heard about it, I tried to pick books that are not as well known or people do not talk about them as much, or you haven't maybe not seen some of them on like BookTube or like TikTok or whatnot, simply because like there's a lot of books out there and some of them get lost, so why not pay attention to them? And the reason that I picked that one that is like super popular, it's because to me it means cozy. Honestly, every time that I think about a cozy book or a book that gives me all of those warm feelings, this book comes to my mind. And so I was like, I cannot make a video and not include this book. So that one is there, but other than that, it's mostly like not as popular books. So anyway, let's get into them, shall we? First, tea. Oh yeah, there's honey in it, so good. Anyway, so the first book, we have Howl's Moving Castle by Diana Wynne Jones. So this book, it's just wonderful. It's magical. There's fantasy, there is surrealism, there is just like, it's like one of the greatest books that have ever existed, honestly. Like books that you want to make you feel good. Books that want to take you away, take you to a different world, to take your mind off things for like a few hours and just like feel great. This is the book for it. And especially if you have not seen the anime version of it, please do. It's by Studio Ghibli and it's just like, honestly, the greatest thing ever. It's like one of my favorites. They're generally like, their work is perfect, beautiful, greatly done. But Howl's Moving Castle is like my favorite because it's so great. And it's like, to me, it's such a wintry, Christmassy sort of like a movie to watch. And I just love it for that season. So the story of this book, it's about Sophie. And Sophie is sort of cursed, and she's this young girl that gets cursed, and now she has turned into this very old woman. And so she's trying to figure out what to do, how to get rid of this curse, what had happened. And so she meets Howls. And Howl is this very sort of a big wizard. He's like very powerful and like everybody knows about him and talk about him. Like he's like, she think that he could be the answer to figure out what to do. So she goes, and Howl's Moving Castle, there's this sort of as like a house castle situation that like moves around and like, you know, goes from like place to place. It's not really bound to a single place. And so she moves with him and she's trying to sort of like take care of him and like, you know, she's like cleaning and doing all of those stuff. And so during this book and this journey, like they're getting close to one another because like their personality is so different, because everybody believes that Howl, he's a very like, not such a nice person, but it's mostly because people don't know him as much and he doesn't really like comes to the city's gathering or whatnot. So like that's the reason like people really do not know him, and because of that they're assuming that he's not really nice and like, you know, he's not going to help or any of that. And so Sophie is like a very nice girl and like she's very helpful, and so their personality is like very different. And throughout this journey, we see how they change one another, how they affect one another, how they learn from one another. And so it's so wonderful. You know, for me, when I think about like cozy books, I really go with fantasy first thing first, because like it's like the coziest of them all. Even though like of course you can find cozy books in every different genre, but like fantasy is like a very like a nice pick for that. And so this one is the first option for sure. And if you have never heard of it, do read the book. do watch the movie, but do read the book too, because like, you know, it's always like so much more fun when you read the book of like a movie or a show it's based on. So that's the first. Next, we have Leonard and Hungry Paul by Ronan Hessoin. Again, forgive me if because I pronounce things not correctly. Anyway, this is the book. And so this book, oh, it is so lovely. So this book, it's for every single person out there that is living a very normal, everyday sort of a life, me included. Because for most of us, our lives, as much as we would love to go on those fantasy adventures and live very exciting, extraordinary sort of lives, that's not real life. Most of us live a very normal everyday lives, and while there are moments and days and months or whatnot that we have like exciting things ahead of us, generally speaking, life, it's very much repetitive and it's like just every day. And so this book, it's perfect for that without making it look boring, making fun of it, making it look like, why it's like that, I don't want it to be like that anymore. And that was the reason that I enjoyed it so much, because it's one of those very refreshing sort of moments when you read a book and you feel that you can so relate to it and you can see yourself truly being the person that that character is. So this book, it's about these two characters, Leonard and Hungry Paul, and these two guys, they live next door to each other during their like mid-early 30s, and they're still living with their parents. They have like very normal jobs, and they are sort of happy and content with what they have and the life that they have. And they meet every week to play board games, because like they love board games, and it's like how they sort of pass time. And so this book follow these two characters and their very normal everyday life, but at the same way that life, it's always like sort of moves and change and like never stay the same. For them, it's the same situation, that they are getting used to this life that they have living with their parents and being in their comfort zone and being very much introvert. And then because of different events that happen, now they're sort of forced and pushed to live a different life, to change, to make some changes to their life. And so I enjoy this book so much. It's one of those books that it's not trying too hard to be something, but at the same time, it's still very comforting and very fun to read. It's lovely to see these two characters, how they interact with one another, how they push one another, because like that's another thing that I love about it, that it's like even in everyday life, sometimes you don't see what you can do differently to improve your life, to do it better, but then another person, it could be a sibling, a friend, like coworker, I don't know, anybody could like point out something very small, and then you're like, how did I not realize that? And that's the same with these two characters, that even though they both are sort of living a similar situation, they are not able to see it for themselves, but they see it for the other person. And since they're friends and they want to help and they want to push the other person to achieve what they want, what they sort of want to gain, they sort of push that person, and by pushing that person, they themselves are sort of like noticing that, oh, I can do that too. And so that's why I think this is such a fun read. It was, again, like it's nothing super adventurous or different or big, but it's mostly very calm, and it's everything is just happening similar to like you're having tea with a friend and they're just telling you about their life, their day, and you're enjoying to get involved with their life, and you're seeing how they're improving, how they're changing. And so I found that as such a perfect book for like winter, and for like when you're looking for a day to just stay in and read a book. I think this is a really good choice for that. So if you're looking for any of those vibes, this is a good pick for that. Next, we have The Brilliant Life of Eudora Honeysett by Anne Leon. So continuing on books that are about like everyday people and sort of like, everyday life, we have Eudora, and she's an 85-year-old woman that has lived a very long, happy life. And she's sort of thinking that, you know what? I'm going to live probably a couple more years, and then after that, I'm gonna die. It's just part of life. And so she set her mind to do as much as she can and like sort of like get things that she always wanted to do done and sort of start to prepare for death as much as like anybody can do. And then she is sort of introduced or put in this position to get introduced to these two very fun, different characters. We have Rose, and she's 10 years old, so she's, as you can tell, it's very different from an 85-year-old woman. So she's like, she's young, she's a child. She has all of those curiosity, she's fun, she wants to play, she wants to go out, she wants to do everything. And then at the same time, we have this neighbor, and he has recently lost his wife, so he's grieving. He's going through it like a whole different set of situation. Stanley, it's his name. And so now we have these three characters that are in different part of life. We have one that is very young. Stanley is like midlife sort of situation. He's younger than Eudora, so sort of like we have three different generations. And they are all still trying to make it work in this very weird friendship group. And I love that. I was there for it the entire time because, again, we have this character that she's trying to prepare for death. We have another character that is grieving so much. And then we have another character that doesn't understand completely any of these two feelings because, like, sure, she's 10, so she has an understanding of death and grieving and all of that, but still she's too young to have experienced it really like that herself. And so it's very interesting to see their own sort of perspective of like how all of these words and different events mean to any of them. And so anyway, they're trying to help each other. And then again, it's like the same situation with the previous book, but in a very like different, fun way. Not that the other one wasn't fun, but it's like in a different set. And so like they go to the beach. They also try to like play games and learn new stuff and get to know each other better and sort of like help one another. And so now we have a character that she's like Eudora, that she's like not sure if she's ready for death. And that's the whole purpose of this book, that it's talking about how no matter how much we think and we feel that we have done everything, that we are happy, that we have achieved whatever that we could have, and maybe we're ready for death. Are we ever truly really ready for death? And is it ever in a stage in a life that you can say that like, you know what, I think I have reached and I have gained everything, and there's like no more sort of surprises or anything that can happen. And like, you have events like this, that you have like new characters and new people coming to your life and change that and give you different sort of purposes. So this book, I really love it because of those character dynamic, because of their relationship, because it's really talk about like humans and like our relationship with one another, how we can help, how with helping others we can change and we can see the world differently no matter how old or young we are, because we can always change that in us. And so I found this book very just comforting. And again, it's one of those books that for like a winter cold day reading is very fun, because you get to do a lot of activities that you might not be able to do during winter, especially if you're living somewhere that it's cold and you cannot go outside as much. So it's very fun. It's very just light and bubbly, and again, despite the fact that the main sort of a start and focus of the book, it's about death, it's not really in a somber way to look at that and that topic, but instead it's really looking at it at a very like another stage of life. And so if you like that, it's a great read. Moving on, we have The Housekeeper and the Professor by Yoko Ogawa. So this is another very heartwarming and touching book. This book is about the professor who, because of a head injury, he only has 80 minutes of short memory. So after that, he doesn't remember anything. And because of this situation, he needs help. And so the housekeeper, which is a widow woman with her son, they sort of move in with him to take care of him. She's going to do all the cleaning and cooking and all of that. And so they start to help him. And then the professor, because of the situation that he sort of has a difficulty to find a purpose or what to do with his life and what can he keep himself busy and occupied without driving himself crazy. So that's the reason that he turns to mathematics. And that's the fun part for me. I'm sorry, it's cold and I love this. Anyway, so the professor, he loves mathematics, and because of this 80-minute, he gets this chance to help, it helps him to focus on all of these different problems, and 80 minutes is enough time for him to resolve the one that he wants, and the ones that he cannot, he can even if he forgets, he has written down enough that by the time that he comes back to it again, he can sort of look and see and then continue working from that part. So anyway, he started to form this relationship with this young son, the young child, that it's the son of the housekeeper. And so throughout the book, we are seeing the relationship between these three characters and mathematics. And even though it's not a mathematic book, so it's not something that you're seeing problem solving throughout the entire chapter and they're asking you a question by the end, but it's very interesting to see the role that mathematics plays in this book, because the housekeeper and her son also start to really appreciate the beauty of math and just how truly our world is based on math and patterns and numbers. And at the same time, the professor is starting to really appreciate human connection and the richness that comes from it, and how we truly need it. And as much as math and all of these formulas and physics and all of these things and rules that are applied to our world, and our world in a lot of aspect revolves around them and work in that situation, still when it comes to human and our connection with one another, you cannot predict it or work it throughout math. And so it's just very lovely, it's very touching, and it's I like to call it a quiet sort of a book, because again, while it's touching every different aspect of life, it's doing it very quietly. It's not loud, it's not screaming in your face, it's not trying to prove a point or really shove it into your face that this is and so because of that I love it. That's this entire list, honestly, all of these books, they're all very much so quiet, and that's the perfect type of books for winter and cold and coziness. Even if you don't live somewhere that it's cold, but it's still, if it's winter, if it's dark by 4 p.m. and you don't know what to do for the next 4, 5, 6 hours till you go to bed, these sort of books, the quiet ones, are really the perfect ones for those type of situation and weather and time of the year. And so if you like any of those things, if you appreciate math, or if you want to appreciate math, or it's not even about math, if you want to sort of get and live a life with a person that has a memory of 80 minutes. Because think about that, our lives would be so different if we could only remember 80 minutes. It's just hard. And so if you want to sort of experience that or see how that experience could be for someone, this is a very sort of nice, lovely read for it. And last but not least, I wanted to end the list with a book that it's still cozy, but in a different way, and that is The Cellist of Sarajevo by Stephen Galloway. So the reason that this book is different, it's because, first of all, it's sort of based on a true person. that was this cellist that used to play in the streets of Sarajevo during war. And so this is a story, it's based on him. And the reason that this book is different, it's because it's a book that it's happening during war. And reading books about war are not really your cup of tea when it comes to cozy, I think for no one. But the reason that this one is different and it still gives me those, if not cozy, those heartwarming feelings, is that it's all about the beauty of the humanity during the hardest time of a lifetime. A country's going through war, and there's honestly no horror compared to that. And because of that, to see how humans come together despite everything that is happening, despite anything that could go wrong, it's going wrong, and yet there are those people that do not lose that sense of humanity, that sense of helping others and truly believing that we're all the same. And that's the reason that I value this book so much, and I feel that it still gives me those warm feelings, because sometimes when you are, even today, when you're looking at everything that's happening all around the world, sometimes it's really hard to have any sense of hope for humanity, because you see how people are just losing their minds. And so this book, for me at least, gives me back that hope that, you know, and especially since it was based on a true person and true events, it gives you that hope that, you know what, as dark as it could seem sometimes, it is still those rays of light that are coming in, and they are always those people that will turn the tables and will turn all of these events to something that could get better, could improve. And so anyway, this story, this book, it's about 4 different characters. So we have the cellist, and then we have a sniper that her whole purpose and job is to protect this cellist, to not let anything or anyone attack him or do anything to him. And then we have a father that, despite everything that is going on, he needs to leave his house every day to go, and he actually passed his cellist a couple of times. He needs to go, to get stuff for his kids and for his family. And then the last character is this old man that works in a bakery. And he is sort of facing this dilemma and this challenge to how to pick the right thing during war, right? That's the hardest part of it. That's like how to be a good person in a bad situation, because it's really hard to it's really easy to say that I will be the good person. I know, I trust myself, I'm good. When I see a person that is in needs of help, I will help them. But when it's war, it's different. When everything it's just losing their meaning, it's really hard during those situations to still stay good, to do the right thing. Because also, it's sometimes not really easy to pick the right thing, because it's not right and wrong. Sometimes it's good and sort of good. And that's the dilemma of this man, that sort of pick the right pick and be sure that he's doing the right thing. And so this book, again, it is not but when I think of cozy and winter read, I think of Howl's Moving Castle. That's the first book that comes to my mind. But if there are those nights that are very long nights and you still sort of feel that there is no hope because it's dark by 4 p.m., this is the book for that, because it gives you that sense of hope at the end of it. When you see all of these characters, that they are not technically related to one another. I mean, the sniper, she is sort of protecting the cellist, so maybe they are a little bit related. But generally speaking, they're living their own lives, and, they're different in their different situation that they're dealing with during this war. But still, how they affect one another without even knowing. And that's what I love about this book, to really see that from a good deed of a person, which is a very small deed. Again, like the cellist, he's not doing anything big, but he's doing as much as he can. He's this person that loves music and knows that how much music has power, that how much it can really affect everyone. We all listen to different sort of music, and that's totally fine. But that's the beauty of music, that no matter which type and genre you're listening to, again, similar to books, and no matter what you're reading, it's always just like so good. With music, it's the same thing. Music can really calm us down, give us hope, lift our spirit. And so this cellist, he's doing that. He is in a situation that in a war that he really cannot do anything. So what he does is that, like, well, I can play this instrument and I can play it good. And so what I can do is to be the music of hope, of a better day, and to calm, even if I can, like to calm people that would hear this song, even if it's for just a couple of seconds, couple of minutes, if they're passing me by, if they're somewhere close by. And so it's by his deed, which is again something that it's not that large, and how he affects all of these different characters. They decide and make different decisions and make sort of their own sort of good deeds. And so again, not the coziest, but honestly one of the most heartwarming books. And if you ever are in a need of a book to remind you that maybe it's not as bleak as it might seem sometimes, and there's still hope. And at the end of the day, humans, even if not all, there are so many good people out there that when it really comes to it, they have and they will, and they always show us that how they will help and come together and try to improve the situation and try to be there for one another and others. And so if you want any of that, this book, it's a perfect match for that. And I hope you enjoy it as much as I did. And by that being said and out of the way, I hope you enjoy this video. I hope you feel warm, cozy, happy, hopeful by the end of reading every single one of these books, or the ones that you like, or revisiting them if you have ever read them. Don't forget to let me know which books are your favorite cozy books that you read during those very long, dark sort of winter nights. Until the next video, happy reading.